أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه المنتجبين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى قيام يوم الدين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So after reaching out to God, acknowledging His sovereignty, His greatness, after understanding that He prevails over all things and that there is nothing devoid of Him, after acknowledging His own state of sinfulness, and this is not only His mind thinking through concepts, you can see very clearly He is feeling what He is saying. So the feel is not generated by the words, but the words are an outcome of what He is feeling. But the brilliant way in which they are structured, the way He articulates it, and you can see, normally in du'as, you do find same sections being repeated here and there. But in this one, by and large, you see a beautiful flow, a whole process that is deepening at every stage. So at one point, he is seeing God. He is viewing a world that is not devoid of God. He sees God's authority all embracing. He sees himself in there as the cause for his own downfall, his own sins, and he feels these sins. Now, I'm not here as a Shia to justify that an Imam doesn't commit sin or whatnot. Sin is what is felt within the soul in the presence of the Lofty One. I remember something can be trivial, but it feels like a mountain as a sin and transgression against God within a heart. And for another one is just a laughing matter. So you can have something very small, but it impacts you profoundly from within in accordance with our relation to God. So he is feeling this state of sinfulness, extreme sinfulness. So he comes at that point, and then he approaches God in a very emotional fashion. He turns to God and he says, I genuinely acknowledge that I have done wrong. I have no excuse whereby to justify my actions. It is true, you have ordained and you have decreed. Your decree and the destiny that you've carved out has assisted my path and my sinful ways. But in all of that, O Lord, it is not a fault of yours. It is a fault of mine. I don't have an argument against you. It is your argument against me. And at this point, we are reminded of the reaction of Iblis against God. Iblis said, the way you have deceived me, God, I will deceive all of them. Because what Iblis was saying was that you knew, after having insight about my nature, you knew that I would respond in this manner. Yet you placed the snare to trap me, and now you've trapped me. But in contrast, if you were to look at Adam, Adam could have turned around to God and said, well, you have constructed me. You know that I am naive. And if I am promised an everlasting life in this blissful state, or a rank above this of the lofty ones, then obviously I will fall for the bait. You knew that. What sort of a parental God does that to his creatures? But Adam didn't. Adam's response here was that God, I have polluted my soul, I have darkened my soul. And you have revealed to me through that process a very big deficiency within my soul, that I did not trust you and your wisdom and your judgment, but I fell for my human frailties. So you can see these two responses. Both of them are faced with the same scenario. Imam Ali offers the response that Adam is offering. He says, you, no doubt, have placed your decree, and that decree has carried me in my sinful ways. But that does not absolve me of my wrongs. Rather, it makes the blame incumbent upon me. Now, how he is seeing it and how he is feeling it, only his heart knows. But when our hearts open up to God, genuinely open up to God, we ourselves begin to see the decree and destiny was carved out in a meticulous way to awaken us to the loftier truths. And that was the function of God's decree. Here now, he comes to the point and he says, oh Lord, I have nothing to excuse me. And this is something we need to do. He said, now I very genuinely offer an apology. فَاقْبَلْ عُذْرِي وَارْحَمْ شِدَّةَ ضُرِّي. Accept my apology. I have nothing. But I'm very genuinely coming to you. And I'm apologizing to you. Now here there is congruence between what he feels and what he is saying. He's saying, I can't excuse myself. I have no justification. The Quran says, بَلِ الْإِنسَانَ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ بَصِيرًا وَلَوْ أَلْقَى مَعَاذِيرًا. Human being sees well within his soul, even though he advances excuses. This thing that we do in our daily lives, justifications that we present, it penetrates so deeply within our psychology that we uphold the same interaction with God. But God, you know what he said to me. But you know what he's done to me in the past. And therefore, this was my response. Imam Ali doesn't see any of those things. He doesn't want to make any excuses. Well, whatever he or she or they might have done, you were supposed to be in my presence. You are supposed to respond in accordance with what you see fit, in accordance with what I want from you. There's no excuse. So Imam Ali very genuinely comes here. And he says, I have no excuse other than offering a very genuine, heartfelt apology to you. Accept my apology. Then he goes on and he says, oh Lord, and this is the emotional side of the dua. He says, oh Lord, will you distance the one that you have drawn close to you? Will you waste the one who you have nurtured and cared for and showered love upon? Here, we are seeing his relationship not with an authority that's overwhelming, not with a master who deserves obedience. He has gone through that stage already. And he has said to God, I have failed at all these levels. Now, he is working towards another relationship that is opening up from deep within his soul. He is looking at God as a parental figure. You see, this is what we need to do. We need to see God beyond his authority and his right above us and on us as a parental, caring God. That is when the nurturing process of the soul begins. Otherwise, if the God of religion is taken at face value within our private lives, there will always be a distance between us and God. There would remain no confidence in God because he is so overwhelmingly majestic. There is no recourse to him. And true, there is no recourse to God. He is of sort, la ilaha, jalla jalal. He is like that. But that God does not work for us at our individual, private, emotional level. So here then, he approaches God in a very different way. He sees God as a nurturing, benevolent, kind parent. As you say to the parent, will you really waste your own child? You have drawn me close to you. Will you push me away? You have nurtured me. Will you burn me now? Then he works into this dua. He says, "Oh Lord, but you do know my tongue has uttered nothing but your name. My limbs have served you tirelessly. My forehead has fallen in prostration, adoring you." Now, this is why I say it's a personal dua of Imam Ali. It was meant for him himself, because he's talking about himself. I can't say to God, "Shall you burn the tongue that has eulogized you incessantly," because it hasn't. Or my forehead that has adorned the dust of humility to glorify you. It hasn't. I haven't done all of these things. Or my limbs that have been striving in your service. I haven't done any of these things. It is his dua. He means what he is saying. In his own personal capacity, he is feeling that unworthy in front of God. And now he is making his way to God at a very private level, in disclosing himself fully. Then he says, "Oh Lord, how can that be possible? Hayhat, anta akram min an tudayya man rabbayta." You are far more noble than to waste the one that you yourself have nurtured. At other points, it says, "Ma dhalika dhannu bik, wal al ma'rufu min fadlik." That is a thought that is distant from you. You cannot be somebody who punishes people who have come to you. But in that, you can see a very deep emotional appeal in which he is saying to God, "My tongue, my mind, my body, my forehead, everything about me has been exclusively for you. Now that I've given myself to you so fully and so totally, will you then waste me and distance me and burn me? Oh Lord, such a thing cannot be thought about you. How can I see and how can I say such a thing of you?" So on the one hand, he is saying, "You have authority. You can do whatever you want. I deserve whatever I get. I have no argument against you." On the other hand, he says, "No, I have known you. I have certain expectations of you. Not expectations based on my right on you, but my expectations based on my understanding of you. That you are so kind and so gracious that I expect you to overlook it. It is not because I am worthy of anything, O God, but it is because you are worthier. How can you, O God, who is so kind, be thought of as somebody who will do this to his creatures?" So he appeals to God in this very emotional fashion, and he opens up to God at that very emotional level and sees God as a nurturing parent. And I think this is the secret in our relationship with God. You see, had it not been for these beautiful du'as, we would have never understood how to relate to God properly. It would have become very, very difficult, because the God of the theologians is a God so removed that he cannot be approached. We will not find the God of the heart. In these supplications, what we find is that these wonderful creatures of God are opening up to God, being their authentic self. Now, if you see this segment of the dua, it is like a person who now has come to terms with his own existence. And now he's turning to God and he's saying, "Look, enough of the pretense. I cut it all out. I've come to this stage in my life now. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't want to secure any benefits for myself through lies, through pretense. I'm going to be honest with you. I need you at this point." Now look at how wonderfully he constructs the next phrases in his du'as. Yeah, beautiful. He said, "Allah, the way you know me, You know how weak I am. I can't bear even the smallest tribulations that befall me on this earth. You know how I scream and how I shout. You know how I cry and run to you. You know that about me. God, you see how delicate my skin is and how frail my bones are. Do you, O God, think that I can bear the torment of hell? He very really sees hell now. It is a threat, and we need to acknowledge it. I'm going to say this tomorrow, but just today, it will be a bit of an overlap. He said, who can bear that place? Who can bear that place that has been kindled through your wrath and your anger? Now, at least anybody gets the wrong idea and they don't come tomorrow. In one portion, he says that I know you. You're such a Lord that within an instant you would extinguish the flames of hell and there would be no resort for anybody there. But because you have taken an oath and the oath is binding, that you will fill it up with the adversaries and the disbelievers. Now, what is that oath? وَلَكِنْ سَبَكَتْ كَلِمَةٌ مِنِّي لَأَمْلَأَنَّ جَهَنَّمَ. The Quran says, I've already passed a decree that I will fill the hell with man and jinn all together. Now, what does that oath mean? Why is it binding? Why is it going to happen? We don't know these metaphysical truths accurately. But the Imam understands them here as he is making his dua, that had you not taken that oath, you would have shut hell down. And indeed, God is one who will shut hell down. Eventually, He will shut it down. You can't expect God to keep that hell burning. مَا دَامَتِ السَّمَاوَاتُ وَالْأَرْضُ إِلَّا مَا شَاءَ اللَّهُ وَمَا شَاءَ رَبِّي. Heaven and hell will persist for as long as the heavens and the earth are in place, or as long as Allah wants. He can shut it down whenever He wants, yes? And the Prophet said eventually, there's a Sufi hadith, Sufis quote this hadith, eventually God will forgive the demon, the shaitan himself. In any case, he sees this inferno and he feels it, and in his khutbah he has already said that the rank of the God conscious in terms of hell, the state of the God conscious in terms of hell, is like people who see it and the people who feel its torment. And he will explain tomorrow what levels of torment there are. But for today, he's looking at the physical torment. He said, I can't bear even a moment of pain in this world, be it physical or psychological. Oh God, how do you think I will bear the torment of hell, whose intensity knows no end, whose duration is unending? The flames engulf, the inhabitants are tossed about, the tormentors are many, the restrainers will restrain me. Oh Lord, do you imagine me to be able to bear that torment? He's not saying to Allah, think about the way he's phrasing it. He's not saying to Allah that I will not be able to bear it. He's turning the question to God. In a very parental capacity, he sees God. He says, God, you know the sort of creature you have created in me. You know how weak I am. Now, do you think I can bear any of that? You know, it's like appealing to the parent. Do you really think I can bear that? You know I can't bear it. Pardon me. But in any case, in this part of the dua, after putting his plea and apology, he comes time and again and he says to God, no, my inner being does not allow me to acknowledge that you will do such a thing. It is as if he knows that my God, there is a threat, but I know my God will not do it. I know he will not. So he is there in that balance. But if you do, then you also have a right to do so. And that reminds me of a hadith of the Blessed Prophet. It's amazing hadith. I've heard it from the Sunni sources that the Blessed Prophet said once that I have no hope of getting into paradise on the weight of my good deeds. The only thing that will get me into paradise is the favor of God and His mercy. What that does is, it takes out this sense of eligibility from within the soul. And when you look into it deeply, the ruin of humankind, the faithful community, is this sense of eligibility. I have done this, so God will do this for me. We often find these things within our minds and the community. I've fasted, I have prayed, I have done charity, so I will be eligible for forgiveness. That eligibility is what brought Shaitan down. Think about it for a minute. He said, لَمَ كُنْ لَأَسْجُدَ I will not prostrate to the one خَلَقْتَهُ طِينًا that you have created from dust. I'm far loftier. I am eligible. I am better. You see, this thing Imam Ali is denying, but I just want to speak on that for 2 minutes that I have left. You see, when we go into eligibility thing, that's when we become discriminatory. I fasted for 20 hours. That person hasn't fasted. How can you say he's also going to go to paradise? You find this argument within the naive minds that the Muslims are going to go to paradise because they've been fasting for 20 hours in summer and that person hasn't fasted. So if you say God will give paradise to all, then that's not fair. I'll just say what is not fair on you is that your parents were Muslims. I wish your parents were Christians. You too would have gotten into paradise without fasting. You should blame your parents for taking you out in this world as a Muslim, right? But imagine a person who fasts. You like that, didn't you? Salawat. You see, the fast that we do, the prayers that we do, these are gifts from God and blessings for which we become indebted. One is that you gave the tawfiq for me to do this. Otherwise, I would not have. Two is, I have wasted the opportunity of the blessing that you gave me, because when I stand in prayer and I say, Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, then my mind is supposed to be ignited into thinking how you govern the vast universe and to take the worry out of my head about my sustenance and my insecurities and to free me. When I say Iyaka na'budu wa Iyaka nasta'een, it is supposed to make me fearless. And I can stand in front of an army of 1,000 with their swords pointed at me and their arrows released from their bows coming to me. And I say, Iyaka na'budu wa Iyaka nasta'een. You gave me that beautiful opportunity for which I'm indebted. And then I'm responsible for not taking the benefit of that opportunity, and I'm indebted even more. And if I've taken the opportunity, then I thank you because in return, you have liberated me through that. These ibadat are to be seen as gifts from God, not something that make us feel that we are eligible. So anyway, I'll finish with this. The Prophet would stand at nights and worship Allah. His feet would swell. His wife went to him and she said, but the verse has come in Surah Fath that Allah has forgiven you all your sins, those that have gone and those that are to come. He said, should I not be a grateful creature? Should I not be a grateful creature to God for all that He has done for me and for all that He has given me? It is here that you find the essence of what's happening. So if you ask the Blessed Prophet, well, what did God give you? He's taken everything away from you. He's put you into abject poverty. Look at your state. He will say, to be honest, He has given me His own self. Can you see that? And for that, I cannot thank Him. It is the night where Imam Ali is struck. But I want to take you through a scene that the Dhakirin often mention. That Imam Ali is being carried back home. He is unable to walk. Before they enter into before they approach his door, he says to the Sahaba, scatter, let my children take me in. What he here is saying, according to our ulama, is that Zainab will not be able to bear the scene. She will not be able to contain herself. If you have a father like Imam Ali and a daughter who's so endowed in her father, a father who is the lion of God and His messenger, and who is the protector, to see him go. So Imam Ali did not want the commotion that would occur within the house to spill out and for them to hear. Now this is the same Zainab who is so engrossed in her family. At a point she sees her brother Hassan breathing his last and trembling upon his deathbed. But we see her at a moment that is unbearable for her. She sees her brother. And I think I'll be forgiven to say this because he was the youngest son of Imam Ali and Bibi Fatima, and he might have been the closest to her. He said, Zainab, look after them. Escort them back home. He bid her farewell. He began to leave. She said, Oh, Aba Abdullah, pause for a moment. Let me behold you one last time. She weeps and falls at his feet. In whose care do you leave me? My father has gone and so has my grandfather. My brother is no longer. Imam embraces her. And he said, my father, my grandfather, my brother were all better than me. If death were to spare anyone, it would have spared my grandfather. Oh, Zainab, bear this loss, for your brother is to tread the path of all those who have gone before him. On this night, we find Imam Ali in a state of a lot of pain. His Sahaba come and ask questions. And he repeatedly says to them, be gentle, for your Imam does not possess the strength. The poison has penetrated his body. The Sahaba are waiting outside. But as the Sahaba cleared away, Zainab looked at her father. And when she saw that there is no one there, she went and gently placed her head upon his chest. And she could not contain herself. So she wept. As she wept, he regained consciousness. This I will say on behalf of the Dhakirin. He said, Ah, my princess, what shall become of you when I am no longer? When you shall be brought back to this Kufa, and you shall call unto me, but your father will respond not. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة.